Back to the Mountain Morning Show, where Austin Schofield joins me again to talk Olympics, and I'm thrilled to have him here. It's now Utah 2026-2030.
Yep, that's right. We wanted to reflect what the Salt Lake Olympic Exploratory Committee was going for, and so they have made it clear they're interested in 2026 as well as 2030.
It seems like a better plan almost, in that we've got a good shot at 2026 now, don't we?
Well, it depends who you ask, for sure. I think there's personally, I believe actually it's 2030. There's been some, there's some news that has come out recently that leads me to believe that. So
talk to me about that.
All right. So the latest news really is that we talked about Sion, Switzerland as a possible candidate city last time, and right after we talked, actually, there's a news report that came out that the Swiss government has decided to, instead of that, we were thinking they might pull out, actually.
Yeah,
but the Swiss government actually decided to back the bid with about $1 billion, and so
that switched things up. Yeah.
So that will affect their bid for 2026, I'm guessing, and so
that makes them an extremely strong competitor for 2026.
Yes, and
so they were really excited about Innsbruck pulling out as well.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. They definitely, I mean, that may have been part of the reason they decided to back it up, because they thought, you know, if Innsbruck, if we don't have to compete with Innsbruck, then we have a lot better shot. And there's a couple other European cities that are interested as well, but Sion has not hosted the Olympics, and they bid for it 3 times, and so maybe the IOC will be a little more gracious to them. Hopefully, they were thinking in the future. I don't know. So
it makes sense. I mean, honestly, I see that probably being the foregone conclusion at this point almost. In fact, I'm kind of curious why we'd even be looking at it. But so yeah, I think you're right. 2030 seems to be the place again.
Yeah.
Who are we still looking at to compete against for 2030?
Well, I think the competitors for 2026 and 2030 are practically the same, especially if they
roll over.
Yeah, especially if they award the bid, you know, again, and that's how it worked out for us. We bid in '98 and then in 2002, so the competition is basically the same. So we talked about Sion, Switzerland a little bit, and you know, the interesting story about them is they bid for it 3 times and haven't gotten it. One of which was in 2002, actually, and so there's one of the competitors. There's also Denver and Reno, which we've talked about before. I think there's other American cities that aren't making it public, to be honest with you. When I was at the United States Olympic Committee Assembly, Larry Props, the chairman of the USOC, said the American cities that made it public are Salt Lake, Denver, and Reno. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Anchorage, Alaska, or Lake Placid, New York, or something like that, you know, taking a run at it.
Lake Placid's done it before. They've gone after it before, right?
Yeah.
We'd expect to see it again.
Yeah, so those are the American cities, and then there's Sapporo, Japan, which hosted the '72 Olympics. There's Lillehammer, Norway, which
94.
Yep. And
couldn't remember for sure.
Yeah, it gets mixed up. And then there's Calgary, Canada, which was in
1986.
88.
Dang it.
Close. And then there's Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Yes.
And they went for it in 2022 and lost to Beijing by 4 votes. And so they thought about going forward again in 2026. And then there's Erzurum, Turkey, actually, which is considering going forward as well.
Really?
And so the only one of those cities that have not either bidded for the Olympics or have not hosted them is Erzurum, Turkey.
Wow.
So it's
almost everybody has venues of what you just described.
Well, sort of. I think, you know, Reno, Squaw Valley in the 60s, and those are a little outdated, but
right. And Squaw Valley did not have bobsled, though.
Yeah,
that was they had to compete somewhere else, if I recall correctly. They did it internationally or something.
Yeah,
which was kind of a weird. That was a weird Olympics, the Squaw Valley Olympics.
Yeah, I
kind of need to do it again.
Yeah, I'm not terribly familiar with those Olympics, but I do know that they have hosted them before, and Denver got the bid in '76 and had a public support issue, and Austria had it in '76. So yeah.
Weird. Yeah, as I recall, now I'm not a historian here. I obviously got the dates wrong on 2 of them. But as I recall, with Squaw Valley, they could not get the building done. They couldn't afford or even manage building the facilities for bobsled, skeleton, and luge.
Okay.
Well, of course, skeleton not a competitive sport then, and so they competed that elsewhere in another country, as I recall.
Okay.
So yeah, that was kind of an odd year for sure.
Yeah, that's unique for sure.
Yeah, so I guess it's time for them to try again.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just fascinating because that's a lot of different places that some of you would never expect. Turkey, really?
Yeah.
They won a Winter Olympics.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They've, like I said, they're the only I don't know much about the geography of Turkey, to be honest with you, but, we think of...
Oh, neither. They have ski slopes?
Yeah, we think of, a lot of deserty area, kind of like, the Middle East and, other places around there. But Turkey is a big country, and so I'm sure they have mountains somewhere.
Wow.
But they did host I'm not sure exactly what it was. It was a youth Olympic sport, Winter Olympic sport type thing. It was I think it was like the European Youth Olympic something or other. I don't know.
Yeah.
So they've hosted an event similar to the Olympics before, so that's something.
All right. What's the newest messaging that we should be, what should we really be paying attention to over the last few days of where we're at?
Well, the Sion, Switzerland development is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah, like I
it's
said.
a lot of money. $1 billion they're putting on it.
Well, that probably won't be the total cost of the Olympics.
No, not at all. But that's a lot of money to put behind it.
Especially to be backed by the government. Usually it's it's a private donation type thing or some other form. But since the government...
Do they have this public support for that kind of a government?
They haven't voted on a referendum yet, but that's probably to come. I do know that there is a recent referendum that voted down a few other Swiss cities, but there's nothing too conclusive about Sion. I know that Sion has obviously been interested in the past, bidding 3 times, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they do have public support.
It's a big place, a very popular place. Okay, so what else? What else should we know as we roll forward to more of the process and things? Where are we at? When do things start happening again with this process?
Yeah, well, for Salt Lake, the process has just barely started once again. Just last week, they announced the members of the Olympic Exploratory Committee for Salt Lake.
Did you feel like, the members didn't surprise me, but did you feel like, and I did, I'll just share this, I thought it seemed that some of the news that came out from them wasn't exactly super positive. I was kind of expecting to hear more positive, and I kind of felt like it was sort of like, well, it's going to cost us a lot of money. Yeah, we kind of know that.
Yeah, I don't know if you could. I think it depends on the context you look at it. There are a few things here and there you could say wasn't super positive. I think Fraser Bullock specifically, he mentioned kind of what I mentioned is that 2030 makes the most sense for our situation, but we're going to be involved in 2026 in case they do a dual bid again.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss out.
Yeah, and so that was, you could look at that as negative, I guess, but and they did talk about how it would cost $1 billion or $2 billion. I think the budget's set between $1.5 to $2 billion, and that's you can look at that. Yeah, that's expensive, and it is expensive. But if you look at Salt Lake 2002 costed $2.5 billion, so it's less expensive than that, and we're 20 years ahead of that time. And
it should be more, not less. Yeah, it's less. That's good.
If you look at Sochi, Russia, they cost $51 billion. Yeah, and so Salt Lake would cost 4% of that. That's huge.
My favorite comment from that Olympics, though, is still that it wouldn't have cost them more if they paved the roads with golden caviar than it cost already. It just cost that. They just spent that much money. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
We have just a couple seconds left. What are your last thoughts as we move forward? How do we get this?
Yeah, well, I think we're doing the things that we need to. If you get a call asking you a poll or something like that for your support your Olympics, definitely say you
yes.
do. And in the meantime, definitely stay engaged with SLC 2026/2030, like the name change we mentioned earlier, and
we find all the information you need.
Yeah, we're a very good source for consolidating all the news. We look at all the reports that all the major news channels do, and this news about Sion, Switzerland actually was not reported nationally by NBC and wasn't reported locally by NBC, and so that's us or NBC itself were the only place you would have found that news. So
it's important news. That's a good place to keep it. So make sure you keep on track with what's going on. Salt Lake 2026, 2030. We'll be back with more on the Mountain Morning Show as we continue with the next hour right after this.